The bright lights of Station Epsilon 9 never dimmed, not even during the artificial night cycle. Alicia Summers wiped down a table in the Cosmic Junction diner, her movements quick and practiced after 6 months of working here. Her blonde hair was tied back in a simple ponytail, and her blue uniform had a small coffee stain near the pocket that wouldn't come out no matter how many times she washed it. Table 4 needs a refill on the Arcturian tea, called Hank Morrison from behind the counter. The older man with salt and pepper hair kept the diner running with military precision, a habit from his 20 years in Earth Fleet. On it, Alicia replied, picking up the special insulated pitcher. The tea would burn human skin on contact, but the ceramic composite container kept it safely contained. She moved carefully between the tables, most occupied by non-humans. The Cosmic Junction sat at the crossroads of 3 major space lanes, making it a popular stop for travelers of all species. Humans were actually the minority here on the edge of Earth-controlled space. At Table 4, 3 Zalaxians sat hunched, over data tablets. Their blue-green skins shimmered under the diner lights, and the small crests on their heads twitched as they spoke in their clicking language. They fell silent as Alicia approached. "More tea?" she asked with a practiced smile. The tallest Zalaxian, wearing ornate silver jewelry that marked him as a merchant-class citizen, looked up at her with 4 pupilled eyes. "If you can manage not to spill it this time," he said in perfect English. Alicia's smile didn't waver as she carefully refilled their cups. Last week, one of them had bumped her arm deliberately while she was pouring, then complained loudly about human clumsiness when the tea splashed. Hank had been forced to comp their meal. "Will there be anything else?" she asked. "This will suffice," the merchant replied, then switched to his native language to say something that made the others laugh sharply. Alicia walked away, knowing they were talking about her. The Zalaxians were the worst customers, always looking down on humans, especially those in service positions. They considered themselves the cultural elite of the galaxy, particularly when it came to music and art. Back at the counter, Hank gave her a sympathetic look. "Don't let them get to you, kid." "I don't," Alicia lied. She had gotten good at pretending. The constant small humiliations didn't bother her. The diner's door slid open with a soft whoosh and Commander Elijah Booth walked in. The tall, dark-skinned man wore the simple blue uniform of Earth Fleet Intelligence. He was one of the few human regulars, stopping by every morning at exactly the same time. "The usual, Commander?" Alicia asked, already reaching for a mug. "Please," he said with a warm smile that made the constant tension in her shoulders ease slightly. "And how's our favorite waitress today?" "Still standing," she replied, pouring him black coffee and sliding a plate with toast across the counter. Booth took a sip and sighed appreciatively. "Real coffee. This is why I put up with being stationed at this backwater post." "I thought it was for the charming company," Hank said dryly. Booth chuckled and opened his data tablet. "That too." The door opened again, and Loretta Green entered. The station's chief engineer was a short, stocky woman with curly red hair escaping from under her work cap. She collapsed onto a stool next to Booth. "Coffee. Strongest you've got," she groaned. "Been up all night fixing the environmental systems in Section 12. Alicia poured her a cup and added a shot of the synthetic stimulant that humans called the wake-up call. "Bless you," Loretta said after gulping half of it down. The morning continued with its usual rhythm. Green merchants came in, their wet skin leaving damp patches on the seats that Alicia would have to clean later. A pair of Draxian scientists argued quietly in the corner over breakfast. The Zalaxians continued to talk and laugh, occasionally shooting superior looks around the diner. During a quiet moment, Alicia found herself staring at the small stage in the corner of the diner. Hank had installed it when he first opened the place, hoping to attract more business with live music. These days, it was mostly used by Zalaxian travelers showing off their musical skills to appreciative audiences of their own kind. "You play?" Loretta asked, noticing her gaze. Alicia startled. "What? No?" "You were looking at the stage like you wanted to be up there." "Just wondering when Hank last dusted it," Alicia said quickly, turning away. She didn't talk about her past. Not with anyone on the station, not even with Hank, who had hired her no questions asked when she arrived 6 months ago, with nothing but a small bag of clothes and haunted eyes. No one here knew that before she was a waitress on a backwater space station. Alicia Summers had been Alice Summerfield, the piano prodigy who had performed at Concert Hall in New London and studied at Juilliard Academy on Earth. That life seemed like it belonged to someone else now, someone who hadn't watched her home, on New Centauri, burned during the conflict. The Zalaxians at Table 4 were getting louder, and now one of them was pulling out a small musical instrument from a carrying case. It was a handheld version of their traditional Torlin, with touch-sensitive plates that responded to the player's bioelectrical field. "Great," muttered Hank. "Here we go again." The Zalaxian began to play, his long fingers moving over the plates with practiced skill. The music that emerged was complex and beautiful, with overlapping harmonies that human musicians had been trying to replicate for decades. Other patrons turned to listen, most with appreciation. A few humans in the diner shifted uncomfortably. Zalaxian musical displays like this were never just about the music. They were demonstrations of supposed superiority. When the short piece ended, the musician looked around with undisguised smugness. "A simple morning melody," he announced to the diner at large, "though I doubt human ears can appreciate the subtle harmonic patterns." Alicia tightened her grip on the coffee pot she was holding, knuckles turning white. "Another round for my friends," the musician called to her with a dismissive gesture. As she approached their table, she could hear them talking in their language again. Her translator implant, a cheap model that only caught about 60% of alien languages, picked up fragments. Humans, primitive, no understanding of true music. "Your tea," she said, refilling their cups mechanically. The musician looked up at her. "Tell me, server, do humans still use those crude instruments with strings and hammers? What are they called?" "Pianos," Alicia said quietly. "Ah, yes, pianos." He pronounced the word like it was slightly distasteful. "So limited in range. So primitive." His companions chittered with laughter. "Have you ever heard real music, server? Music that speaks to the soul rather than just the simple emotions humans experience?" Alicia thought of the Rachmaninoff concerto she had performed for her Juilliard final, the standing ovation, her teacher's tears of pride. She thought of the countless hours of practice, the bloody fingertips, the joy of losing herself in a piece, so completely that nothing else existed. "No," she lied. "I haven't." "A pity," said the Zalaxian, not sounding sorry at all. "Some things are simply beyond human comprehension." Alicia walked away, her face expressionless. Behind her, the Zalaxian began to play again, fingers moving elegantly over the instrument. The music followed her like a taunt as she retreated, behind the counter. Hank gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze. "You okay?" She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. "One day," he said quietly, so only she could hear, "someone's going to wipe those smug looks off their faces." Alicia managed a small smile but didn't reply. She had left music behind when she left Earth. Some dreams weren't meant to survive. 3 days later, Hank called an emergency staff meeting before opening. The small team gathered in the kitchen. Alicia, Greg the cook, Paula, who handled the night shift, and Vix, the Torellian busboy who communicated through a translation device. "Big news," Hank said, leaning against the counter. "Station Command just informed me that Ambassador Katora of the Zalaxian High Council will be visiting next week for diplomatic talks." Paula whistled. "That's high level. And they've chosen the Cosmic Junction as the meeting place," Hank continued. "Apparently, the ambassador requested a casual setting frequented by multiple species for preliminary discussions with Earth representatives." Greg crossed his arms. "They're using us as neutral ground." "Exactly," Hank nodded. "And it's a huge opportunity. If we impress them, we could get recommended as an official diplomatic meeting spot." Alicia felt a knot forming in her stomach. More Zalaxians meant more of their special brand of condescension. "We've got 7 days to prepare," Hank said. "I'm investing in some upgrades, New tablecloths, better lighting, fresh paint for the back wall, and we need to add Zalaxian dishes to the menu. Greg groaned. Their food requires special handling. The spices are mildly toxic to humans. I've ordered protective gloves, Hank assured him. And one more thing. The ambassador's office is sending over a musical instrument as a goodwill gesture. Apparently, music is central to their diplomatic traditions. Alicia looked up sharply. What kind of instrument? Something like a piano from what they described. It'll be delivered tomorrow and placed on the stage. After the meeting, Alicia mechanically went through her opening routine, her mind elsewhere. A Zalaxian instrument similar to a piano. She had read about their musical devices in music theory classes but had never seen one up close. The morning. Rush came and went. Around midday, Commander Booth arrived, looking more formal than usual in his dress uniform. Not your regular time, Alicia noted as she poured his coffee. Official business today, he replied quietly. I'm part of the team meeting with the Zalaxian delegation next week. Thought I'd check out the venue beforehand. Lucky us, Alicia said with a hint of sarcasm that made Booth raise an eyebrow. Not a fan of our blue-green visitors? She shrugged. Let's just say they don't tip well. Booth laughed, then lowered his voice. Between us, they're not my favorite either. Too full of themselves. But this meeting is important. The trade agreement we're negotiating could help the outer colonies that are still rebuilding after the Centauri conflict. Alicia's hand froze momentarily on the coffee pot. Booth noticed but didn't comment. Anyway, he continued casually, I hear they're bringing one of their famous harmonic chambers. Ever seen one? No, she said, composing herself. What's it like? Similar to a piano in appearance, but it uses gravity tech instead of strings. Creates sounds impossible for traditional instruments. They guard the manufacturing process carefully. It's one of their major cultural exports. The next morning, a delivery shuttle arrived at the station. 8 Zalaxian technicians in formal attire wheeled a large case into the diner. Inside was an instrument that made Alicia's heart beat faster. It looked like a sleek, futuristic grand piano, with a glossy, black surface that seemed to absorb light. Instead of keys, it had flat touch plates arranged in a familiar pattern. Above them hovered thin crystal rods connected to resonance chambers. The lead technician addressed Hank. This is a 7th-generation harmonic chamber on loan from the ambassador's personal collection. It is calibrated for the station's gravity and atmospheric conditions. His tone implied they were being granted an extraordinary privilege. After they left, Hank approached the instrument cautiously. We're not supposed to touch it. They're sending a musician with the delegation to play it during the meeting. Alicia couldn't take her eyes off it. It's beautiful, she whispered. You like music? Hank asked, surprised. She quickly looked away. Everyone likes music. For the next 5 days, the diner underwent a transformation. New lighting was installed, walls were painted, and Greg practiced preparing Zalaxian cuisine. The harmonic chamber sat untouched on the stage, roped off with a polite sign asking patrons not to approach it. Alicia often found herself staring at it during quiet moments. Her fingers itched with the memory of playing, a sensation she thought she had buried long ago. The day before the diplomatic meeting, Loretta came in for her morning coffee looking frazzled. Station's gone crazy, she said, gratefully accepting the steaming mug from Alicia. Security checks everywhere, visiting dignitaries arriving hourly, and I've had to recalibrate the environmental systems in the diplomatic quarters 3 times to account for different species' needs. Sounds rough, Alicia sympathized. And these? Zalaxians, Loretta continued, lowering her voice. So demanding. The ambassador's aide inspected my work and said the oxygen mix was barely acceptable for civilized respiration. Alicia rolled her eyes. Typical. That evening after closing, Hank asked Alicia to stay late and help with final preparations. They worked in companionable silence, arranging tables and placing small decorative plants from the station's hydroponics bay around the diner. You've been quiet lately, Hank observed as they finished. Just tired, she replied automatically. Hank glanced at the harmonic chamber. That thing makes you uncomfortable, doesn't it? What? No. You keep looking at it like it might bite you. He paused. Or like you miss someone. Alicia turned away, adjusting a plant that didn't need adjusting. You're imagining things. I don't ask about people's pasts, Hank said gently. Everyone on this station is running from something or looking for something. That's the frontier, but if you ever want to talk... There's nothing to talk about, she said firmly. I'm just a waitress. The morning of the diplomatic meeting arrived. The diner was closed to regular customers for the day. Alicia came in early, wearing the new uniform Hank had ordered for the occasion. Still blue, but made of finer material with subtle Earthfleet styling. You look nice, Greg commented from the kitchen doorway. I look like a proper servant, Alicia replied, smoothing down the uniform. That's the point, isn't it? By midday, everything was ready. At precisely 1300 station time, the doors slid. Open and Station Commander Patel entered, followed by Commander Booth and 3 other human officials in formal attire. Welcome, Hank greeted them. Please make yourselves comfortable. The Zalaxian delegation should arrive shortly. They had barely taken their seats when the doors opened again. Ambassador Katora entered, flanked by an entourage of 8 Zalaxians. The ambassador was taller than the others, his skin a deeper blue-green, and the crest on his head more pronounced. He wore elaborate robes with metallic threads that caught the light. The atmosphere in the diner immediately changed, becoming charged with tension. Ambassador Katora looked around with an expression that might have been disdain or simply alien neutrality. His gaze lingered on the harmonic chamber before turning to the human delegation. Commander Patel, he said in a melodious voice. How good of you to arrange this quaint venue. Alicia, standing ready with drinks, caught Commander Booth's subtle eye roll. Hank stepped forward. Ambassador, we're honored by your presence. Please be seated. My staff will serve refreshments before your discussions begin. Katora inclined his head slightly. Very well. The 2 groups sat at opposite sides of the large central table. Alicia began serving drinks, water and tea for the humans, Zalaxian fermented nectar for the visitors. As she placed a glass before one of the junior Zalaxian officials, he looked up at her. Careful, human. That beverage costs more than you, likely earn in a month. Alicia kept her face neutral, but her hand trembled slightly as she finished serving. The preliminary conversations were stiff, filled with diplomatic niceties that barely masked underlying tensions. Alicia moved quietly around the edges of the room, refilling drinks and bringing small plates of food. Perhaps, Ambassador Katora eventually said, some music might ease our discussions. I have brought musician first-rank Zeth to demonstrate our cultural achievement. One of the Zalaxians rose and approached the harmonic chamber. With a reverential gesture, he removed the rope barrier and sat before the instrument. This modest composition, he announced, is called Sunrise Over 3 Moons. It is considered simple enough for beginners. His fingers touched the plates, and the room filled with hauntingly beautiful sounds, complex harmonies that seemed to vibrate through Alicia's very bones. The music from the harmonic chamber washed over the room. Alicia stood frozen, a pitcher of water forgotten in her hands as the Zalaxian played. The sounds were unlike anything produced by Earth instruments, notes that seemed to bend and weave through each other, creating patterns that were mathematically perfect. Her trained ear recognized the structure of the piece, complex, yes, but not as revolutionary as the Zalaxians believed. There were patterns similar to Bach, harmonies that reminded her of Debussy. When musician Zeth finished, the Zalaxian delegation clicked their approval, while the humans applauded politely. A remarkable demonstration, Commander Patel said diplomatically. Ambassador, Katora made a gesture that might have been modesty but came across as smug. Merely a simple composition. Our true masterworks would be challenging for human hearing to fully appreciate. Perhaps we should return to the trade negotiation points, Commander Booth suggested, clearly trying to move the conversation forward. Of course, Katora replied, though I find that cultural understanding must precede commercial arrangements, don't you agree? The meeting continued with discussion of trade routes and tariffs. Alicia moved about the room, serving food prepared by Greg. The special Zalaxian dishes had taken him hours to perfect. As she placed a plate before Ambassador Katora, he looked up at her with his four-pupiled eyes. "Your chef has made a passable attempt at our cuisine." "Thank you, Ambassador. He worked very hard on it," Alicia said quietly. "A commendable effort for a species with such limited sensory perception." Katora glanced at his aides, who chittered, appreciatively at his wit. Alicia stepped back, catching Commander Booth's sympathetic glance. The meal progressed, and with food came more direct conversation. The initial diplomatic stiffness began to thaw slightly, though the undercurrent of Zalaxian superiority remained. "Your station is adequately maintained," one of the Zalaxian officials remarked to Commander Patel. "Almost up to regional standards." "We do our best with the resources available," Patel replied evenly. "Yes, we understand human limitations," Katora said. "It is why we find your species so interesting. You achieve modest results despite your constraints." Commander Booth's jaw tightened, but he maintained his professional demeanor. Another Zalaxian official spoke up. "We were surprised to find humans had established outposts this far into the galactic arm. Your expansion is quite rapid for a species so new to interstellar travel." "We're adaptable," Commander Patel said with forced pleasantness. "Indeed," Ambassador Katora agreed, "though adaptation without refinement has its limits." The conversation turned to the recent Centauri conflict. Alicia, collecting empty plates, felt her heart rate increase. She tried to focus on her task rather than the discussion. "The unfortunate business at New Centauri," Katora was saying, "might have been avoided if human colonization had proceeded with more cultural sensitivity." Commander Booth leaned forward. "With respect, Ambassador, the attack on our civilian settlement was unprovoked." "From your perspective, perhaps," Katora replied smoothly. "But established species understand territorial nuances that younger races might miss." Alicia's hands trembled slightly as she stacked plates. Images flashed in her mind. The burning concert hall, the chaos as people fled, her family's desperate race to the evacuation ships. "The Zalaxian Consortium remained neutral during that regrettable conflict," Katora continued, "though we provided humanitarian assistance to displaced persons." "How generous," Commander Booth said, not bothering to hide his sarcasm. Katora's head crest flattened slightly, a sign of disapproval. "Your tone suggests ingratitude, Commander. Perhaps your species requires more time to develop proper diplomatic comportment." The tension in the room grew palpable. Alicia returned to the service counter where Hank gave her a concerned look. "You okay?" he whispered. She nodded stiffly. "Fine." Musician Zeth rose from his seat. "Perhaps another musical interlude would help restore harmony to our discussions." Without waiting for a response, he returned to the harmonic chamber. This time, the piece was more aggressive, with complex rhythms that seemed designed to demonstrate technical prowess rather than emotional depth. When he finished, the Zalaxians again signaled their approval, while the humans applauded with noticeably less enthusiasm. "A traditional composition," Zeth explained, "that commemorates the great unification of Zalaxian territories, 5 centuries ago." "Very impressive," Commander Patel said. "Indeed," Katora agreed. "Music is the highest form of communication. Through it, we express concepts beyond the reach of mere words." He turned to the human delegation. "Does your species have anything comparable?" Before any of the officials could respond, one of the junior Zalaxians spoke up. "I spent a rotation at your Earth embassy last year. I visited what you call a concert hall and found the experience quite primitive." "Our musical traditions are different, not primitive," Commander Booth countered. "Different," the Zalaxian agreed with obvious condescension. "Like a child's drawing is different from a master's painting." Ambassador Katora made a quieting gesture to his subordinate, though he seemed more concerned with the breach of protocol than the insult itself. "Perhaps," Katora said, "one of your delegation would care to demonstrate human music on our instrument? Cultural exchange should be reciprocal." The human officials glanced at each other uncomfortably. None of them were musicians. "I'm afraid we can't match your expertise, Ambassador," Commander Patel said diplomatically. "No matter," Katora replied. "Not all species have the same capacities." Another Zalaxian, emboldened by his superior's attitude, added, "The harmonic chamber requires a sophisticated neural pattern to operate correctly. Human brain structure may be too simplistic to form the necessary connections." At these words, Alicia felt something snap inside her. The careful wall she had built around her past began to crumble. "Is that really true?" she asked, her voice cutting through the tension in the room. All eyes turned to her. The human officials looked surprised that a waitress would interject. The Zalaxians appeared somewhere between shocked and amused. Hank stepped forward quickly. "Alicia, perhaps you should check on the kitchen." "No, let her speak," Ambassador Katora said with obvious amusement. "I'm curious what insights a server might offer on comparative neurophysiology." Alicia set down her tray. "I was just wondering if humans truly can't play your instrument, or if that's just something you assume." The room fell silent. "Commander," Booth was staring at her with raised eyebrows. Commander Patel looked mortified. Musician Zeth let out a sound that might have been a laugh. "The harmonic chamber requires decades of training even for Zalaxians with our superior neural capacity." "So, no human has ever tried?" Alicia pressed. Katora studied her with new interest. "Not to my knowledge. The attempt would likely be embarrassing for your species." "Then how do you know we can't?" Alicia asked. The Zalaxian delegation exchanged glances that needed no translation. Was this simple human servant challenging them? Ambassador Katora leaned back in his chair. "An interesting question from unexpected quarters. Tell me, server, are you volunteering to test this theory?" All the humans in the room stared at Alicia. Hank looked worried. Commander Booth seemed intrigued. Commander Patel appeared ready to terminate her station residency permit on the spot. Alicia felt a strange calm settle over her. 6 months of enduring Zalaxian condescension. Years of burying her talent. The loss of her home on New Centauri. It all converged in this moment. "Yes," she said simply. "I am." Musician Zeth made a dismissive gesture. "Ambassador, this is absurd. The instrument is not a toy for untrained humans to damage." "I agree it would be inappropriate," Commander Patel interjected quickly. "Alicia, please return to your duties." But Ambassador Katora raised a hand. "No, I find this intriguing. Scientific inquiry demands we test our assumptions." He turned to Alicia. "Very well, server. You may attempt to play our harmonic chamber." "Ambassador," protested Zeth, "this is unprecedented, and therefore interesting." Katora cut him off. "If we truly believe in Zalaxian superiority, we should not fear putting it to the test." His tone made it clear he expected the demonstration to reinforce, not challenge, their prejudices. Hank caught Alicia's eye, his expression asking a silent question. "Are you sure?" She gave him a small nod, then walked toward the stage where the magnificent instrument waited. The room went quiet as Alicia approached the harmonic chamber. She could feel every eye on her, the concerned stares of the humans and the mocking gazes of the Zalaxians. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her steps were steady. "This should be amusing," one of the Zalaxian officials whispered, not bothering to keep his voice down. Musician Zeth stood nearby, his posture rigid with indignation. "At least allow me to adjust the sensitivity settings to compensate for human limitations," he said to Ambassador Katora. "That won't be necessary," Alicia said quietly. She reached the instrument and stood before it for a moment, taking in its sleek design. Up close, she could see that the flat touch plates were arranged similarly to piano keys, though with additional rows for harmonics that Earth instruments couldn't produce. Alicia sat down on the bench. 5 years had passed since she last performed in public. 5 years since the attack on New Centauri had taken everything from her: her home, her family, her music. "The server appears frozen with fear," another Zalaxian commented, generating more clicks of amusement from the delegation. Commander Booth leaned forward in his seat, watching intently. Hank stood with his arms crossed, worry evident on his face. Alicia placed her hands above the touch plates, not making contact yet. She closed her eyes briefly, feeling the old familiar calm settling over her. The performance calm that had carried her through concerts since she was 7 years old. Then, she began to play. At first, nothing happened. The touch plates required a specific bioelectrical connection that she hadn't yet established. She adjusted the pressure of her fingers, recalling what she knew about Zalaxian instruments from her music theory classes. A soft tone emerged, then another. Basic notes, nothing special. The Zalaxians exchanged smug glances. A valiant effort, Ambassador Katora said, already beginning to rise from his seat. Perhaps now we can return to... The notes suddenly changed. Alicia had found the right touch, the right connection between her nervous system and the instrument's sensors. Her fingers began to move more confidently across the plates. A cascade of sounds filled the room. Not random notes, but a deliberate, structured melody that grew more complex with each passing second. She started with a piece she knew intimately, Bach's Prelude in C major, but adapted it to the harmonic chamber's expanded capabilities. The Zalaxians froze. Ambassador Katora slowly sat back down. Alicia's hands moved faster, adding layers of harmony that would be impossible on a traditional piano. She let muscle memory guide her, while her trained ear explored the new possibilities of this alien instrument. The crystal rods above the touch plates began to glow with gentle blue light that pulsed with the music. This was something she hadn't expected, a visual component to the performance that responded to the player's emotions and intent. She transitioned smoothly into Debussy's Clair de Lune, but with additional harmonic layers that the Earth composer could only have dreamed of creating. The blue glow intensified, spreading throughout the instrument's resonance chambers. Impossible, musician Zeth whispered, his earlier disdain replaced by disbelief. Commander Booth was grinning widely now. Hank stood with his mouth slightly open in shock. Even Commander Patel's diplomatic mask had slipped, revealing surprise and pride. Alicia felt something awakening inside her, the joy of creation that she had buried along with her past. Her fingers moved with growing confidence as she explored the harmonic chamber's capabilities, pushing beyond her classical training into improvisation. She incorporated elements of the Zalaxian music she had just heard, weaving them into her human compositions. The blue glow deepened to purple, then to a rich gold that spilled out across the stage. The Zalaxians were utterly still now, their earlier mockery forgotten. Several of them had their eyes closed, head crests fully extended in what Alicia knew was their expression of deep attention. For nearly 5 minutes, she played without pause, bringing together Earth classical traditions and the new possibilities of the Zalaxian instrument. She ended with a final chord progression that hung in the air long after her hands lifted from the touch plates. In the silence that followed, Alicia could hear her own heartbeat. She felt lightheaded, as if awakening from a dream. She hadn't meant to reveal herself like this, hadn't planned to ever play again. Yet here she was. She turned to face the room. The human delegation erupted in applause. Commander Booth was on his feet, clapping enthusiastically. Hank looked like he might cry. Even Loretta, who must have slipped in during the performance, was whistling from the back of the diner. The Zalaxians remained silent, their cultural protocols more reserved. But their body language told a different story. Their head crests remained fully extended, and they leaned forward with an intensity that betrayed their fascination. Ambassador Katora rose slowly from his seat. The room fell quiet again. "You have been deceiving us," he said to Alicia, his voice carefully neutral. "No, Ambassador," she replied. "I've been serving your tea. You are no ordinary server. I was a concert pianist on Earth and later on Nu Centauri," Alicia admitted, before the attack. Understanding flickered in the ambassador's eyes. "You lost your home." "Yes. And you came here to hide?" Alicia looked down. to survive. Musician Zeth approached the harmonic chamber, examining it as if searching for some trick or malfunction. Finding none, he turned to Alicia with reluctant respect. "The instrument responded to you in ways I've rarely seen," he said. "The chromatic resonance pattern, the gold light, is most unusual." "I didn't know what the colors meant," Alicia admitted. "They reflect the player's emotional connection to the music," Zeth explained. "Gold is rare, even among our most accomplished musicians." Ambassador Katora stepped forward. "What is your full name?" "Alice Summerfield," she said, using her real name for the first time since arriving on the station. "I studied at Juilliard Academy on Earth." Commander Booth stood up. "Ambassador, this unexpected demonstration seems like an excellent foundation for our cultural exchange discussions. Don't you think?" Katora tilted his head, considering. "Indeed. Perhaps there is more to learn about human capabilities than we had previously acknowledged." The junior Zalaxian who had been most vocal in his mockery shifted uncomfortably. "One exceptional human doesn't change the overall assessment of your species," he muttered. "Exceptions challenge assumptions," Katora replied sharply. "That is the foundation of scientific inquiry." He turned back to Alicia. "Would you play something else for us? Something from your human tradition?" The question hung in the air. Alicia glanced at Hank, who gave her an encouraging nod. "I would be honored, Ambassador," she said. As she returned to the harmonic chamber, Alicia felt a strange sense of coming home. The weight of hiding, of pretending to be less than she was, began to lift. She placed her hands on the touch plates, again, but this time with confidence. She chose Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. The piece she had been scheduled to perform the night New Centauri was attacked. The piece she thought she would never play again. As the first notes filled the room, Commander Booth leaned over to Commander Patel and whispered, "I think our trade negotiations just got a lot more interesting." Patel nodded, a small smile playing on her lips. "And I think we just found our new cultural attaché." The music swelled, beautiful and human and alive with emotion. And as Alicia played, the harmonic chamber glowed with gold light that seemed to pulse with each beat of her heart. 3 weeks after the historic meeting at the Cosmic Junction, Alicia stood in the newly expanded performance area of the diner. The small stage had been rebuilt, now featuring proper lighting and sound equipment. The harmonic chamber remained, a gift from Ambassador Katora following the successful trade negotiations. "Still can't believe they left it here," Hank said, adjusting a chair on the stage. "That thing must be worth more than the entire station." "It's not a gift to us," Alicia replied. "It's a diplomatic investment." Since her unexpected performance, life had changed dramatically. Word had spread quickly throughout the station and beyond. The diner was now fully booked every night, with visitors from multiple species coming to hear the human who could play Zalaxian music. Alicia moved to the harmonic chamber and ran her fingers lightly over the touch plates. She had spent hours each day learning its capabilities, studying how different pressures and bioelectrical impulses created different sounds. "You're getting better at it," came a voice from behind her. She turned to see Commander Booth entering, with a data tablet under his arm. He had become a more frequent visitor since the meeting. "Still learning," she said. "Their music theory is fascinating, based on mathematical principles similar to ours, but with different underlying assumptions." Booth smiled. "Ambassador Katora asked specifically about your progress when I spoke with him yesterday. How did the follow-up talks go?" "Remarkably well. The trade agreement is moving forward with better terms than we expected." He paused. "He also mentioned something about a cultural exchange program between Earth and Zalax." Alicia looked up sharply. "What kind of program?" "Musicians, artists, scholars." Booth set his tablet down. "Katora suggested you might be interested in being Earth's first cultural representative." She shook her head. "I'm just a waitress." "We both know that's not true," Booth said gently. The doors slid open again, and Loretta entered with a group of station workers. The engineering crew had become regular customers since Alicia's performance. "There she is," Loretta announced proudly to her team. The woman who showed those blue-faced music snobs what humans can do. Alicia smiled. The station residents had embraced her as a kind of local hero, though the attention still made her uncomfortable. "The usual table, Loretta?" Hank asked, coming out from behind the counter. "You know it, and we want the good stuff tonight. We just finished realigning the entire docking bay, ahead of schedule." As Hank led them to their table, Alicia turned back to Booth. "I never wanted any of this attention. Sometimes life has other plans," he replied. "I looked up your performance records from before New Centauri. You were exceptional even then." She stiffened. "That was another life. It doesn't have to be." Booth hesitated, then added, "You know, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means building something new from what remains." Before she could respond, the doors opened again. This time, 3 Zalaxians entered, not the merchant class she was used to serving, but cultural officials based on their formal attire. Behind them came 2 humans in Earth Diplomatic Corps uniforms. One of the Zalaxians approached her. "Alice Summerfield, I am Cultural Attaché Varen. May we speak with you?" For the next hour, Alicia sat with the delegation as they outlined a proposal. The Zalaxian Cultural Ministry wanted to establish a music academy on the station, a place where both species could learn from each other. They wanted her to be its first instructor. "This is unexpected," she said when they finished. "Is it?" the attaché asked. "Your performance demonstrated the untapped potential of cross-species musical exchange. Ambassador Katora believes this could be the foundation for improved relations beyond mere trade agreements." "I haven't performed professionally." "In 5 years," Alicia protested. "I'm not qualified to teach." One of the human diplomats spoke up. "Ms. Summerfield, the Earth Diplomatic Corps agrees with the Zalaxian assessment. This opportunity could be significant not just for you, but for human-Zalaxian relations." After the delegation left, promising to return for her answer in a few days, Alicia found herself alone at the harmonic chamber. The diner would open for evening service soon, and she needed to change into her uniform. Yet she remained seated at the instrument, her thoughts in turmoil. For 5 years, she had hidden who she was, buried her talent along with the painful memories of what she had lost. Now she was being asked to resurrect that part of herself, to build something new with it. "You don't have to decide right away," Hank said, approaching from behind the counter. "What would you do?" she asked, not looking up. "Me? I'd take the chance." He leaned against the stage. "When I opened this place, I was running from my own past. Thought I'd just serve drinks until I figured out what came next. Then this place became home." He nodded toward the harmonic chamber. "Maybe this is your next step." That evening, the diner was busier than usual. A group of Vreen merchants occupied the corner table, while a mix of humans and other species filled the remaining seats. Word had spread that Alicia would perform after dinner service. As she moved among the tables serving drinks, she noticed the atmosphere had changed from months ago. The Zalaxians who came to the diner now treated her, and other humans, with noticeably more respect. The mocking comments had ceased. After the main service was complete, Hank dimmed the regular lights and illuminated the stage. The conversations quieted as Alicia walked to the harmonic chamber. "Good evening," she said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Tonight I'd like to play something new, a piece I've been working on that combines elements of both Earth and Zalaxian musical traditions." As she began to play, the harmonic chamber responded with swirls of gold and blue light. The melody started with a familiar Earth classical structure, but incorporated the complex harmonics possible only on the Zalaxian instrument. It told a story of loss and new beginnings, of worlds colliding and finding unexpected harmony. From her position on stage, Alicia could see the rapt faces of the audience, humans and aliens alike, united in the experience of the music. "Commander." Booth sat with Loretta and her crew, nodding appreciatively. In the back, the Zalaxian cultural attaché had returned and was watching intently. For the first time in years, Alicia felt completely present, neither hiding from her past nor defined by it. The music flowed through her, creating connections between worlds that once seemed hopelessly distant. When she finished, the applause was immediate and enthusiastic, with humans clapping and Zalaxians extending their head crests in appreciation. She took a small bow, still unused to the attention. As she stepped off the stage, Commander Booth approached. "Have you made your decision?" Alicia looked around the diner, at Hank, who had given her a chance when she needed it most, at the station, residents who had embraced her, at the mix of species united by her music. "I think I have," she said. "This place taught me that sometimes you find your future in the most unexpected places." The next day, Alicia formally accepted the position at the new music academy. She would continue working part-time at the diner, now renamed the Cosmic Harmony, where she would perform 3 nights a week on the Zalaxian harmonic chamber. 6 months later, as she watched her first class of mixed human and Zalaxian students attempt simple melodies, Ambassador Katora visited the academy. After observing for a while, he approached her. "When you served me tea that day," he said, "did you ever imagine this outcome?" Alicia smiled. "Never. I was just trying to survive." And now? She looked at her students, former enemies learning to create beauty together. "Now I'm living again," she said, "and perhaps helping build something that will outlast all of us." The ambassador's head crest extended fully in respect. From one who serves drinks to one who serves harmony. An unexpected, but worthy journey.